Hello and welcome to my ranking for the challenge series, every season of the challenge. Now, I need to lay out some ground rules before we get into these rankings. First of all, I will not be ranking every single season of the challenge. I know that sounds like I just straight up contradicted myself from the first few seconds of this video, but I will not be ranking any of these spin-offs, so I'll be ranking only seasons 1 through 38. I mean, this is gonna already be too long or long enough with 38 seasons. I don't need to add a whole bunch of other seasons, as well as where the heck would I rank the Spring Break Challenge? Now, something I feel like I have to mention before starting this video is that when talking about something being the best or the worst, especially in terms of like a TV show like The Challenge, these rankings are subjective. These are just my opinion of where I would rank these seasons, because I like to put some statistics or numbers in everything I kind of do. So I would give a ranking 1 through 5 for the following categories of cast, daily challenge, eliminations, entertainment, drama, as well as ranking them on their rewatchability of either a yes or a no. Now, as I mentioned, this is all subjective. Every ranking that I will be saying in this video is of my own opinion. It is not 100% objective truth. So please do not get mad if you see a season that you like or that you think is top 10, top 15, and I have ranked it in my bottom 7. Instead of getting angry, put a comment down in the comment section letting me know why you think that season is way better than what I have in my rankings, or vice versa. And I would like to get my visual aid set up to help out with this little project of mine. And here we go. Corkboard, got. Pointer, bought. Now, let's start off with what I deem to be the Sickly 7. This is what I would deem, in my opinion, the 7 worst seasons in the challenge's history. These seasons have very little redeemable qualities amongst them. They do have their moments, and there is some points in these challenges that are recognizable and fun, but the bad mostly outweighs whatever fun or intrigue these seasons bring. Let's see what's at the bottom of the rung and what I have ranked as the 38th season in the challenge's history. I know what you're saying. Oh, how original. Another person having season 16, The Island, as the worst season in the show's history. But let me say this. If everybody thinks that season 16, The Island, is the worst season, maybe it's the worst season. Now, in the challenge's docuseries called The Untold History of the Challenge, even production was saying like, okay, well, maybe everybody is right that season 16, The Island, is the worst. Even though I think they kind of just deemed it the worst for the wrong reasons.
Then came The Island.
The takeaway I got from them saying it was the worst challenge season was that they like refused to fully feed their contestants, so everybody was hangry.
Production, twice a day, would have barbecues.
Give them more food now because they're actually so hungry that they're gonna cross the fourth wall.
Everyone was really excited for The Island, except the viewers.
So that was why it was bad, which is not the real reason why. The Island is an easy example of the challenge kind of foregoing everything that made the challenge up to that point, throwing everything away to try to structure itself as much as it could to Survivor without being really Survivor. Because at that point in Survivor's history, and really since then, Survivor has been ratings gold ever since it premiered in like 2000. So the challenge we don't have ratings from way back in season 16, but even the ratings that we could find, the challenge was not pulling as close to numbers or nearly as close to numbers as Survivor was. So by the time of season 16, I felt like maybe the challenge was running its wheels. Up to that point, they did like 3 gauntlets, 3 infernos, a fresh meat season. They've done pretty much everything that they were like, well, why don't we just structure ourselves to be more like Survivor? And maybe that word of mouth will reach the fans of Survivor to then check out the challenge, and maybe we can boost our ratings up. Come to find out, that was a huge backfire. The Island Season 16 is the only season in the show's history to not feature challenges. The other 37 seasons that I have ranked higher than this one all feature challenges. The Island throws away challenges, throws away elimination games, brings in this format style called face-offs where 3 people, majority of the time, will face off against each other in a certain task, and the 2 losers will be sent to a vote. This was rough. Not only was this format a bust, everything else was a bust as well, from where they made everybody sleep, the lack of food, how everybody treated each other. I mean, this season gets worse and worse with every passing year.
Tanya, you're how much plastic surgery you had in the last year? I want to know that.
When will she just die and go away?
You're a giant.
Coley, if I'm a you're a bitch.
The only good thing about season 16 is that there's only 8 episodes. The problem is it's 8 episodes too long. The gameplay is predictable. Mix that with a very underwhelming finals, and what you got is the bottom of the barrel. Season 16, The Island. All right, now let's go to the ranking of number 37, and that is boom, season 23. Battle of the Seasons 2012. Now, over on patreon.com/angelcakevids, I made a small rant/breakdown video of a season that I deemed to be the worst season in challenge history. And the subject of that video was season 23, Battle of the Seasons 2012. It wasn't until I was putting together some scripts for the worst series, where during that research, I couldn't help but put Season 16 at the bottom. The thing that saves Battle of the Seasons from being at the very bottom for me is the contributions that are still upheld today from that season. Battle of the Seasons 2012 is the season where we are introduced to the Hall Brawl and Not So Fast, 2 classic challenge elimination that we see pretty much season after season after season, except for Not So Fast. Sometimes that gets thrown out, but Hall Brawl is pretty much a staple to every single challenge season at this point. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, if they gave us such classic challenge eliminations like Hall Brawl and Not So Fast, shouldn't that bump them up a little bit higher in your rankings? Wrong. That's very wrong. This is one of the weakest casts in the show's history. After Wes and Team Fresh Meat are eliminated from this season, if you look at who is left in this game and what they go on to accomplish in the rest of the years afterwards, it's very little. I mean, you have Sarah going to be a 2-time champ very soon after this, and some people may make 1 or 2 or a couple final appearances, but other than that, there's not too many people that do anything or even come back for another season after this. To me, everything about the Battle of the Seasons 2012 is weak sauce. Whether it be the cast, whether it is by the daily challenge, whether it by some of the eliminations, as well as just in general, even the winners were kind of weak sauce in my opinion. All right, let's move on to number 36. All right, this is not working out so well. Boom! I have season 4, the Extreme Challenge. It's anything but. That's right, I have the Extreme Challenge. And I think many people were thinking, oh, well, he has to have a whole bunch of these earlier seasons on here because they're just not matching up to the modern challenge. False. Extreme Challenge is by far the worst of what I would deem the stepping stones seasons of the challenge. Extreme Challenge has one of my least favorite casts of all time, as well as just how boring it is. I mean, Road Rules team is absolutely terrible. The worst Road Rules team ever assembled. And not only that, but they have big babies on their teams. You have Susie who comes on after Ayanna gets DQ'd, which was totally bogus. I hated that situation. So that also plays into a factor of this, why Ayanna was DQ'd on that season. And then you bring on Susie, which is like, whoa, thanks so much. What did we do to deserve a treat like Susie being put onto this cast? But then you got James, who is in this like relationship with Rebecca, which lasts like barely anything. And then James is just a big old baby throughout the whole season. And the whole Road Rules cast is a big baby. Some of the challenges are redundant to some of the past seasons of 1, 2, and 3 that they did on that, but they tried to make it even bigger, but they don't. So take this as an example. Season 3, the Challenge 2000, they do bungee jumping off the stratosphere in Las Vegas, right? That's extreme. They're doing it for a world record. What does the Extreme Challenge do? They bungee off of a crane with water, and then there's also a fire ring, and they have to grab as many balls as possible, or hold on to as many balls as possible. Which do you think is more extreme? Yeah, the Challenge 2000. That's what I thought, and if you didn't say that, you should have. So yeah, Season 4, the Extreme Challenge, is extremely boring and extremely forgettable. All right, let's see what I have ranked at 35th. I have Season 9, Battle of the Sexes 2. Now, I have to mention that Season 6 and Season 9 are not great. I just don't understand. I just don't understand what was going through their minds after Season 6, and then they decided to do Season 9 and felt like that was a good idea. Also, Season 9 felt like a regression in the format of the challenge, because in Season 5 and Season 6, they did vote outs. But in Season 7 and Season 8, they introduced elimination games, and it seemed to be working. Season 7 and Season 8 are heightened in the level of bringing in an extra addition to those seasons with the elimination games. But with Season 9, they decided to roll back and decide to bring back vote outs like that was ever a good idea. They decided to be like, well, Gauntlet and Inferno were cool, but what if we did vote outs again and we did Season 6, but different and on a ranch in like Santa Fe, New Mexico? Yeah, that sounds great. Super fun idea. This season was a blowout. It wasn't that exciting. It's not that fun. It just was blah. I also did not like the ranch idea at all. That was so weird, and no thank you. All right, time to see what's ranked at number 34. Season 11, Gauntlet 2, pirate themed. Now, a lot of people will say that Gauntlet 2 was not that bad, and maybe should be ranked higher. I can understand that. I mean, it was a little bit different. It was bright, it was sunshiny. However, it just wasn't my deal. I did not like the format of team captains, where if your team lost, you had to go into elimination. Derek was the heart and soul of his Veterans Champions team, yet he went into so many eliminations, was eliminated on a bogus elimination of reverse tug of war, where you need no skill, no real athleticism. All you need to be is taller and heavier, and you could win that 9 out of 10 times. Let's go back to see Ruthie versus Beth in the reverse tug of war. Who would you deem as more athletic coming into this matchup? I would give it to Ruthie. However, in a reverse tug of war, because Beth is a couple of inches taller and heavier than Ruthie, she easily wins this. The same thing happens with Derek right at the end of the season. So that format kind of loses me. Also, this cast was pretty weak in my opinion, especially who makes it to the finals. Look at this eclectic group of competitors. Now, there's some competitors that will move on to win multiple challenge championships, but after those names and looking at the rest of the cast who's in the finals, it's not good. And speaking of the finals, this is probably the worst finals in challenge history. Now, I know there is a rumor of there being a really nasty storm the night before and blah, blah, blah. But even with all of that, they still could have played all 3 games and it could have been something exciting. However, the edit was 5 minutes and it was 1 eating challenge and then it was over. So mix the format with the cast who had a lot of quitters and not that much competition with a boring finals and probably the worst finals in the challenge history, and you get the Gauntlet 2 in the Sickly 7. Now let's see who's at 33. We have Season 14. Now, Season 14 was known or coined by me as the lost season that the challenge would never want you to watch. And I put out a video last year kind of pointing out why it probably will never see the light of day. All for that to be for naught, because about a year later, the challenge would put it onto Paramount Plus, easily accessible to anybody with a subscription to watch as much as they want. Upon rewatching Inferno 3, I have to say that maybe it wasn't for controversial issues on the season or something that they were worried about people seeing of the show that they didn't want people to stream it. maybe it was because of how forgettable this season really is. I think the mystery of it not being able to be streamed for so long added a shroud of mystery to this season where people were like, oh, I want to watch Inferno 3. Maybe they were just like, didn't want us to see it because it was pretty forgettable. I mean, honestly, think of Inferno 3 and try to remember the key iconic moments of that season. A lot of people say, oh, well, CT punches Davis and gets eliminated in the first episode. But after that, what was iconic about that season? Is there an elimination that sticks out in anybody's mind as being incredible? Maybe the Rachel elimination where she loses against Jen and she gets really angry and says this.
Just being so ashamed that some chubby civilian girl can beat me.
Is there a daily challenge that may pop into your mind as being something transcendent of the show and that it was really, really incredible? Honestly, I feel like people mostly remember this season for the I Hate Tanya game and Ace making it past like the first episode. Other than that, Inferno 3 is really kind of whatever. I think it's higher than the rest because the format doesn't make me absolutely angry. All right, let's find out which season is the last and the highest of the Sickly 7. That's right, season 18, The Ruins. I was pointing at Gauntlet 2. That's right, season 18, The Ruins. I think people are pretty shocked that I have The Ruins up so high, and you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I should have had it down a little bit lower. I mean, if I was pretty upset by the Battle of the Seasons, maybe it could be lower than this one. I think the cast and the competition level of this season is way better than all of these seasons. I mean, half of the cast is champions. So having that at your helm, as well as some pretty fun, decent challengers on the challenger team, even though if you're putting this together, how can you expect a team of champions who have won going up against challengers who have lost time and time again? How do you think that that's going to be fun or exciting or evenly matched moving forward in this game? The challengers team is highly inept in every sense of the word. You would think that they have never played the challenge in their life. But because of the champions team, how much drama is on this season, I mean, it gets frankly very predictable as the season goes on. I mean, the finals is Kellyanne and Sarah versus a ton of dudes and Susie. This was the season where Wes lost his first elimination. Darrell and Brad got into a giant fight. This was the last time we saw Veronica and Tanya on the same season, where Tanya lashed out at Veronica because of all the different things that the Mean Girls put Tanya through leading up to this final season. I mean, I talked about Inferno 3 being highly forgettable, but The Ruins is highly memorable. Maybe not all positive, but at least you remember The Ruins and why it may not be good. So to me, this is the bottom 7 of the challenge and what I deem the Sickly 7. Now, let's move on to what I deemed the stale 6. These seasons have some more redeemable qualities, but still they don't hit that challenge sweet spot. They kind of go stale at certain points in the game. Maybe they have some ups, but then they kind of roll down and then plateau for quite a while. Now, let's see what I have ranked at number, I forget. Season 15, Gauntlet 3. Gauntlet 3 isn't exactly terrible. I could have put it in the Sickly 7 because this season is predictable as well. This season was fine. It was serviceable. What I think is terrible is how they handled the finals. They had one rule in the finals that if not everybody on your team crosses the finish line, your whole team is pretty much DQ'd out of the game. So early on, with 10 minutes into these finals, when Big Easy is taken out on a stretcher, you can just turn off the episode. You can have those credits run, baby, because that's it. It's over. And you know what? That's such a bogus rule. Never have they done that rule before or since Gauntlet 3. And what happens is that you have some pretty long-term vets who were looking for their first championship and never got it. I think of Robin. I mean, DM could have been a challenge champion, and that would have changed the trajectory. Instead of in season 18, The Ruins, instead of Johanna being on the champions team, it could have been DM. But we didn't get it because People were scared to go against Big Easy, and I know people who are going to be watching this going like, good, I'm glad the vets didn't win. And I think it's fine too. I'm glad the vets didn't win as well. But I would have wished they would have not had this like stipulation of having to need everybody to make it across that finish line, because they never used that rule ever again. I think production figured out that that was a terrible rule after that and goes, well, we're never going to do that again. And they never did. I mean, in season 7, when Coral gets a spider bite on her ankle and is taken off and had to get medically DQ'd, the whole real world team wasn't affected. Years later, when you have like season 20 Cutthroat and you have Abram and Sarah puking their brains out and being taken off in an ambulance, TJ doesn't say, well, you're out. No, they get second place, and Abram and Sarah still get paid out of that grand prize money. So season 15 is an anomaly for that one rule that I can't stop thinking about. But I do agree that the vets were pretty horrible to not only the other team of the rookies, but also to each other. This is a ridiculous season that I could see falling into my sickly 7 as time goes on. But for now, it's at the bottom of the stale 6. Next up, we have Season 1 Road Rules All-Stars. Now, I hate putting Season 1 so far down because I think it is a tentpole of the series itself. But when really looking back on it, people don't necessarily ever reference Season 1 for the sole fact that it's barely a challenge. It's more of a road rules season. They take a handful of notable real-worlders and put them in a road rules situation of traveling around doing different tasks for money, and that's it. I kind of have it up this high because, one, we have to know where the challenge roots come from, but two, it's also kind of enjoyable to watch. I mean, it's only like 5 episodes. The whole season is shorter than most movies that are being made nowadays, and I like the personalities. They do get into a little bit of a wacky and some arguments and everything, but overall, it's pretty decent, but it's not that great. Oh baby, season 37. I put season 37, one of the more recent seasons of the challenge, this far down in the rankings. This season was absolutely a slog to watch through. And I'm not saying this because over half the cast was rookies from all different countries. I think having new competitors and new perspectives and the challenge casting a wider net can add to the game overall. But what is with this casting? Most of these people don't even know what the challenge was. I think their manager just was like, hey, here's this show in America. And they were like, oh, I've always wanted to be on an American show, so I'm just going to say yes. And some people rose to the occasion, and a lot of people felt, yeah, this was just bad. I mean, heavily spy themed. The challenges were meh at certain points. The friendship talk was just way over the top. The finals didn't make any sense. It just, aesthetically, it wasn't fun to watch. You could tell, like, they want to make the challenge an event rather than this be an actual reality show. I love how they're like, we are trying to be the next sport, the 5th sport of America. Yet I don't remember like the NFL doing spy themed or anything. Oh man, that would be so funny. Where it's just like, this season, the NBA is celebrating its 80th season. And for that, all the teams are doing Spy Night. And what's even worst of all is a lot of these people that we have seen on season 37 haven't even come back. I mean, it's still early. We've only had one other season prior, but still, it's just like, what's the point? Why are we having so many new people just to then kind of dump them and never really use them again? Well, there is some rumors for the Challenge 39, and maybe some of these people will be back, but my gosh. Now, I spoke about season 1 and having to give it its credit where credit is due at being one of the stepping stones of the challenge and what we know of it today. Well, season 2 is here because it's pretty much in the same boat. I mean, season 2 is basically how the challenge first got its legs and then took off. And it was like a screaming run from there on since. And I do like Real World vs. Road Rules Challenge season 2. But in terms of the challenge series overall, I couldn't place it any higher in my rankings. I like the cast, I like how everybody was playing the game, but overall, it is fine. You can watch it in an afternoon. It is acceptable. If you're a newer challenge fan watching season 2, you're like, okay, I can see where you're coming from, but I would much rather start watching maybe in the middle, get into the teens a little bit, because that's when everything was really starting to pick up some steam. Season 6, Battle of the Sexes 1. Now, I talked about Season 9 earlier in the Sickly 7, and as we are watching through on my Patreon, patreon.com/angelcakevids through Season 6, there were moments that I actually liked this season. This season had some redeemable moments to it, but overall, it suffers from the same thing that Season 9 did, which is no surprise because Season 9 and Season 6 are basically the same season, just different cast. But ultimately, it's the same game, just one is in Jamaica and the other one is in a desert. Now, Season 6, the women get super messy, which is always fun because the men were being really boring and being really logical, and they were also winning a ton on this season, where it was a blowout in the finals, which ultimately leaves this season in the stale 6. But it's ranked so high because of how good the mess was compared to the rest of the mess that was in these seasons, or lack thereof of messy in any of these seasons. Season 6 Battle of the Sexes, upon a second rewatch through the Patreon, a slower rewatch, I liked how this all came down. I liked how this season was going on, but liking it and ranking it any higher just made no logical sense to me at the end of the day. So it sits here, boom, second place of the stale 6. And finally, what's the top of the stale 6? What's number 1 of the stale 6? Season 38, Ride or Dies. Now, as I said, some of these seasons have some redeemable qualities. There's moments in Season 38 where the gameplay seems to be really fun. It's taking off. It's feeling different. And then all of a sudden, what's going on? Oh no, format change. One big team is winning a ton. Oh no, there's a redeeming portion and everybody gets back into pairs. Ultimately, Challenge 38 is up this high because of the early gameplay on the seasons, people actually wanting to play the game, have some fun, as well as Horacio winning 5 eliminations, which ties Sarah Grayson and Wes for the most eliminations seen and won on a challenge season and making it to the finals. But at a certain point, like I said, this gameplay starts to really just get really kind of boring. It's 22 episodes that I will be gritting my teeth through in about a year when I feel the need that I have to go back and rewatch it for a video or video purposes or a player documentary or anything to that effect. But that is it for the bottom 13 seasons of the challenge, in my opinion. You could think is good, or you could think is bad. If you disagree with me on any of the seasons that I talked about today in this video, let me know down in the comment section below. What are your rankings of the bottom 13? What are your sickly 7? And what are your stale 6 rankings? Let me know down in the comment section below and hear what you have to say, as well as I will be back very soon with another rankings video where I will rank my seasons that I have in ranks 25 all the way up to 14. I want to give a special shout out, thank you to everyone who supports me over at patreon.com/angelcakevids. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who is watching this video up to this point. I'll be back really soon with another challenge rankings, with more challenge content, more content in general. But until then, peace.